Hello, my name is Emma, and in today's video, I am going to talk about some of the most common preposition mistakes I see. So what is a preposition? Well, a preposition is a small word in English that many students find very annoying. Just kidding. What a preposition is it is a small word in English that carries some information. It's not a verb, it's not a noun, it's not an adjective. A preposition is a word like in, at, on, up, down, around, about, with, for, okay? So there are many of them, and just those little words can actually change the meaning of a sentence entirely. Now today we're going to look at certain verbs that have prepositions in them, and which ones students often make mistakes with. So let's get started. If you look at the first sentence I have, are you going to the beach? You might answer, it depends. The weather. With the sentence, it depends, after depends, many students have trouble with what preposition comes after it. Is it at? Is it on? Is it in? What do you think? It depends on the weather, okay? It depends on the situation. It depends on my family. So remember, when we use depends, the preposition that comes after it is the word on. Now, I'm going to teach you about the 10 most common preposition mistakes I see. If you don't use these words, they might be something you might want to study later. Focus on the ones for now that you use a lot and try to make sure you're doing those ones correctly. So it depends on the weather. This is another common mistake I see. So this is an expression in English. It starts with the preposition and then it's the other hand. I hear many students say, in the other hand. That's not correct. In English, we have an expression, it's on the other hand. Okay, so let's look at an example. Healthcare costs the government money. On the other hand, people live healthier lives if they have healthcare. So we use on the other hand when we are showing a contrasting viewpoint. So we're showing both sides of an argument, okay? For example, I might say, dogs can get really dirty. On the other hand, they can make great companions. Okay, so I'm showing two different sides of an argument. So now let's look at some other common mistakes students or learners of English make with prepositions. Okay, so the next common mistake I see is with this word waiting. We use this word a lot in English. You know, people are always waiting for something. So many students get confused with what preposition to use after the word waiting. Sometimes I see students not use any prepositions like this. They say, she is waiting the bus. That is incorrect. Okay, so I'm just going to put an X right here so you know that's not the right one. So there has to be a preposition that comes after the word waiting. What preposition do you think it is? It might be with, for, at, in, on. Any guesses? She is waiting for something. I am waiting for the bus. I'm waiting for dinner. She's waiting for her parents to come home. Okay, so after waiting, we have this preposition for. What's another common mistake I see? Please come to class, time. With the word time, many students have a lot of trouble with prepositions. Is it on time or is it in time? We actually have a whole video devoted to that. But let's look at this example. please come to class, what do you think? On time. Okay, so this means don't be late. On time means not late. Let's look at another example. I bought a new dress, $100. A lot of people make mistakes when we're talking about money and how much money we spent to get something. So what do we use? Do we use with or do we use for? I bought a new dress with $100 or I bought a new dress for $100. In this case, we use for. What you're saying in this sentence is, I bought a new dress and it cost $100. I bought a new book for 50 cents. I bought a new purse for $200. Okay, so when we're talking about buying things and we're talking about money, we use this preposition for. Another common mistake I see is with the word thinking or think. Think often has a preposition after it. Can you think which one I'm thinking of? In this case, I'm thinking about joining a club. I'm thinking about a number. I'm thinking about a famous person. Okay, so what are you thinking about? I'm thinking about, and then there's usually a topic. Okay, so thinking about something. So now let's look at a couple other common mistakes learners make when it comes to prepositions. Okay, so English can be a very confusing language. You're going to see what I mean by this in a moment. Here is my example with the word night and the morning. Okay, so when we're talking about time, when we're talking about night, morning, afternoon, evening, let's look at the prepositions we use. I watch TV night. So we need some sort of preposition here. What preposition do you think it is? If you said at, you are correct. I watch TV at night. I like to walk at night. I go out at night. But this is where it gets confusing. I work the morning. What preposition goes here? Can we say I work at the morning? No, we can't. A different preposition goes in morning, afternoon, and evening. That preposition is in. I work in the morning, I work in the afternoon, and I work in the evening. So the one that is special or different is night. Morning, afternoon, and evening all use the preposition in, whereas night uses at. Okay. So now let's look at another example of a common mistake people make. It's with this word married. So when we're talking about people who are married, there's a preposition we need to use. Let's look at our example. Justin Trudeau is married Sophie. Do you think it's with Sophie or to Sophie? Justin Trudeau is married to Sophie. Okay, so married to someone. John Oliver is married to a very brave woman. Roseanne was married to Tom Arnold. Okay, so there are some examples we use to. My sister is married to a British man. Let's look at another example or another place where learners often make mistakes. That is with the day of the week. Friday, I went to a restaurant. Should this be at Friday, in Friday, or on Friday? If you said on Friday, you are correct. On Friday, I went to a restaurant. So when we're talking about days of the week, we use on Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday, on Thursday, on Friday, on Saturday, and on Sunday. What about with the month? I have here June. I went swimming. Can I say on June? No, I say in June. In June, I went swimming. Now, if you're looking at these two things and you're thinking, oh, why? This is so tough. This is so difficult. It's okay. Remember my piece of advice. Think about the words you use the most and focus on those first. So I would say dates like Friday, months, we use a lot when we talk. So really focus on memorizing that you use on with days of the week and in with the months, okay? Think about which of these you're the most likely to use, and then focus on those. So let's look at my final example of a common mistake people make with prepositions. All right, so our final example of a common mistake. That is with the words when we're talking about cities or countries. If I say something like, I'm going Toronto, there needs to be a preposition after go. What preposition should I use? I should use the preposition, I'm going to Toronto. Okay, so after go, we have the preposition to. And it's not just cities or countries. We can also use this with other places as well. I'm going to work. I'm going to the library. I'm going to the shopping mall. Now, there's another exception, and that's with this word home. I'm going, do we say I'm going to home? No. With home, we don't need a preposition after go. We can just say I'm going home. So with all these other things I've mentioned, like city, country, I'm going to France, we need the word to after go. Or if we have the past tense, for example, I went Italy, we need this word to. But with home, it's different. Okay, so now let's look at another final example of when we're talking about places and prepositions. If we're talking about being in a place, like a city or a country. For example, I have here the verb live. What preposition comes after this? I live in Toronto. So I'm going to Toronto. I live in Toronto. Or if I don't even want to use the verb live, I can just say I'm in Italy. My sister's in Italy. My brother's in Japan. Okay, so we can use in with countries or cities when we're talking about living there or being there. But when we're talking about go, we use to. So these are some of the most common preposition mistakes learners make. So again, think about which ones are you likely to make and study those ones. Practice those ones. Remember, practice makes perfect. So you can actually practice these by taking our quiz at www.engvid.com. You can also subscribe to my channel. I have many other resources on a lot of different topics related to learning a language. Okay, so just don't forget to ring the bell, because if you ring the bell, you will see what new videos are coming out. You can also check out my website at www.teacheremma.com, and there you can find even more resources. So thank you for watching, and until next time, take care.